The owner of this rather nice Strat has asked me to refret it for him, but he wants me to install stainless steel rather than nickel silver. Nickel is what's on here at the moment. Now, as you're probably aware, stainless steel is much harder than nickel. And so when it comes to installing, refretting a guitar with stainless steel frets, it does present a number of challenges. The techniques you have to use have to be modified slightly because of the hardness material, and it certainly has a major impact on the tools you would use to install stainless steel frets. So in this video I'm just going to show you some of that, particularly focusing on the techniques and how it's different from installing nickel, and particularly on the tools I'm using to install stainless steel frets. Now this is an unbound fretboard. By that I mean you see the end of the fret wire. But what about installing stainless steel frets in a bound fretboard? Well, again, the hardness of the material has an impact particularly on the tools you would use to undercut the tang. That's the part that sits in the fret slot. So I'm going to look at that in a bit more detail as well. I'm not going to go through the whole installation process, but just focus on those parts of that process that are relevant for installing stainless steel frets. So hopefully by the end of this film it'll give you an insight into the process, particularly if you're thinking of installing stainless steel frets yourself, and the tools you might want to purchase in doing so. But also give you an insight into why someone like me would charge quite a bit more for installing stainless steel frets compared with nickel frets. As you can see, the frets are out, and please say there's no chipping up and down the fretboard. Nothing to do with the installation of stainless steel frets, but when I checked the radius up and down the fretboard, this is a 9.5 radius Strat. In this area here, the radius was a little more than 9.5. Hard to know, but maybe sort of 8, 9 radius. And so what I've done is just flatten this area back to 9.5, so it's a consistent 9.5 up and down the fretboard. A really important part of installing frets, whether it's stainless steel or EVO gold or nickel silver, is to make sure the fretboard is properly prepped prior to the new frets going in, so that the new frets seat well, and therefore you have to do as little leveling and profiling the frets as possible. The first tool we're going to look at is fret wire cutters. Now this is by Stanley. I've had these many years, and these are a more sort of specialist fret wire cutter from Stu Mac in America. So let's try on some nickel silver. This is 2.8 by 1.4, so what many people would describe as jumbo fret wire. And trying the Stanley first. So that cuts through quite nicely. And the Stu Mac. Yeah, so hopefully you can see that cuts through with a little more ease. And now on to, this is stainless steel. This is what I'm going to be installing in this Strat, and this is 2.3 by 1.4, so a little narrower, the same height as the nickel silver we've been just looking at. So with the Stanley nippers, so you can see I'm having to put in a lot more effort. Let's try that again. Yeah, so you can see the effort I'm going to have to put into cut through the fret wire with the Stanley cutters. Let's try the Stu Mac, and that cuts a lot easier. As I said, I've had these many years, and the edge is looking okay. Yeah, the edge is not sort of chipping out. So you can see that that type of tool which you'll buy from any hardware store will do it if you're trying to install stainless steel. But if you're going to do sort of more than a one-off job, then it probably is worth investing in a tool such as this. And there are various types in the market now which say that they will cope with cutting stainless steel fret wire. Now let's have a look at tools for cutting off the tang from the fret wire. So this section along here is called the tang, and it has these barbed sections which bite against the edge of the fret slot. And so when fretting guitar with a bound fretboard, this section needs to be removed. I've got a couple of tools here for doing that. This is one I've had for many years. It works well, but I'm not sure how durable this is for stainless steel fret wire. And so when I started working a lot more with stainless steel fret wire and Evo Gold, I purchased this tool. This is from Summit, and what I like about this tool is as well as coping with stainless steel fret wire, it has removal sections that allow you to set this for cutting fret wire of different sizes, and also this top part sort of slides backwards and forwards and allows you to set how much of the tang you want to remove. So let's give this a go with well, 3 types of fret wire here. So I'm going to start with some nickel. And that's removed very easily and left yeah, that's pretty clean. Now let's try some stainless steel. Yeah, some more sort of snaps off than cuts through, but that's removed quite easily. And whilst we're here, let's do some Evo Gold. Yeah, so that feels to me that it's sort of somewhere between the stainless steel and the nickel in terms of amount of effort I need to use to remove the tang. Evo Gold is, in terms of hardness, sort of somewhere between nickel and stainless steel. But you can see that there's not a huge amount of difference. I'm not feeling a huge amount of difference in terms of amount of pressure I need to apply to the tool to remove the stainless steel tang, you know, compared to the nickel. You know, pretty much for muchness. I've radiused the fret wire. I'm now ready for installation. This is just a sort of fairly typical tool for creating the radius on the fretboard. The only thing I would say about stainless steel is just need to be careful not to over radius the fret wire because of its sort of stiffness and hardness. So this is 9.5 fretboard, and probably the fret wire is around about sort of, well, 7.25 radius now. So I'm going to install with a mixture of pressing in and tapping, and I'll sort of show you how I do that. I decided not to glue this fret wire in. The slots are all in good condition and quite narrow, and so I'm just confident that I don't need to put some glue in the slots first off, but I may just run some glue into the ends of the fret slots. So all the frets are in, and before I go any further, I'm just going to work up and down the fretboard, and I'm feeling for that rocking motion, which I don't know if you can hear, and that's telling me that second fret is sitting very slightly high in relation to the first and third fret. It just needs to be tapped down a bit. Okay, that's fine. So I'm just going to work up on the fretboard and do that for all the frets.
Now I always do this with any type of fret wire I'm installing, and what it means is that any fret leveling I have to do will just be the tiniest amount, literally just skimming over the top with a diamond stone, and therefore I'm keeping as much of the profile of the original fret wire as possible. Now I say I would do this with all types of fret wire, but it's even more important with stainless steel, because any leveling you do, any recrowning, any polishing, just takes so much longer. So if you can minimize the amount of recrowning, leveling, polishing, then all the better. So I'm just going to work up and down the fretboard now and complete that process.
The next thing I need to do is dress the fret ends. Now this is where you really start to experience the hardness of stainless steel compared with nickel. For many years I would have used engineer's files for dressing the fret ends, and these will work sort of perfectly fine, but when it comes to working on stainless steel and also on Evo Gold, they will work, but they will just take a very, very long time to produce your profile. So over time I've invested in a number of diamond stones. This is a 150 grit, that's a 320. This one's a combination of 400 and 1000, and this is a super fine one which I just use just for leveling the tops of frets. You know, these are relatively cheap. These diamond stones are not cheap. But let's come in a bit closer and make a comparison between engineer's files and diamond stones when it comes to profiling the end of frets. Let's start with working with the engineer's file. This is always the hardest part to profile, address the fret ends, because the frets are so much closer together. So the file is cutting, but it's taking a long time. Let's now move on to the diamond stone. This is a 150 grit. And you can hear it cutting. Yeah, already I'm sort of down to, I don't want to go any further than I have with this. I'm now going to transfer on to a finer grit diamond stone, because I just don't want to unnecessarily cut into the edge of the fretboard. Yeah, but hopefully you can see how quickly that cuts compared to the engineer's file. As you can see, I've fixed the neck back into the body and just placed the whole of the guitar in this jig, which just allows me to control the straightness of the neck and gives me good access around the neck as I'm working on it. And I'm just checking that the neck is perfectly straight. Yeah, which it is. Despite the way I installed the frets, just checking the frets in groups of threes, I did find one or two that were not perfectly level, so I have done some individual fret leveling and reprofiling using this tool, which puts the crown back on the frets. And because these frets are stainless steel,
that process just does take a little longer than if I was doing the same with nickel frets. But I'm now ready to do the final leveling of the frets on this guitar. And I'm going to do the leveling process in two stages. First of all, I'm just concentrating on these top 6 or 7 frets, and I'm using a leveling beam that has got tape on this part of the beam, which means that it doesn't level any of the frets up of this part, but just concentrates on this area here. And as well as leveling the frets, it's also just creating a very slight fall away in this area here, and that just helps the guitar to play better. And I'm also going to just work a little bit more on the center of the fretboard, and that just helps with that choking out that you often get on 9.5 and particularly 7.25 fretboards when you're string bending around your 10th, 12th fret area. Now, if I was working on nickel frets, I'd be done by now, but I can see I still need to do some more here. So I'm just going to carry on a bit longer, and then once I'm done, I'm going to put the profile back on these frets. I'm now ready to level all the frets, and to do that I'm using this very fine diamond stone. Some people like to put marker pen on the top of the fret so they can see that all the whatever they're using for leveling has touched the top of all the frets. I must admit, where I'm working, I can just look across and I can catch it in the light. Some people like to use a leveling beam which dresses or levels all the frets in one go. I prefer to use this, which just allows me to work on a sort of small area of frets, so that if I know I've got an area I need to address here, I can do that without taking an unnecessary amount off the height of other frets. So I think it just gives me a bit more control, and means that I'm literally just skimming over the top of the frets and taking off as little as possible. Okay, just looking across the frets, it seems to me that every fret has got the tiniest amount taken off the top. That looks good, so I'm now ready for polishing up these frets. So the last part of this refret process is to polish up these frets and take out any scratches left by the leveling process. Up this end of the fretboard, I've taken off a bit more of the height of the frets, and therefore had to recrown the frets to bring the dome back up. Down this end of the fretboard, I've literally just skimmed over the top with the diamond stone, so I've not had to do any reprofiling of the fret, so I can go straight on to the polishing process. Now, being stainless steel, this part of the process, the polishing up of the frets, dressing of the fret ends, well, it takes probably sort of twice as long as if this was a refret with nickel silver. Just to take out the scratches, just have to work a lot harder. But once it's all done, these frets aren't going to tarnish in the way that nickel silver does, and will look just lovely.
So hopefully this has given you some insight into the installation of stainless steel frets. Now, I've been doing this for a while, so like everyone, you have a tendency to get stuck into your own way of doing things. So if other people have been installing stainless steel frets and using different techniques, different tools, then I'd be really interested to hear what you're doing so that I can learn from you as well and get some new ideas. Okay, so that's the installation of stainless steel frets. But importantly for the guitarist, what does that actually mean in terms of playability and tone? Well, thinking about tone first, I personally don't hear a lot of tonal difference between nickel silver and the stainless steel. Other people say they can. Maybe my ear is just not well enough attuned to it, and I certainly don't hear anything that I hear that is negative in the tone once stainless steel frets are installed. What I would say is that it's more for me about the playability. So these frets have got a nice shape to them, they're nicely polished up. This guitar feels just very just smooth under the fingers as I slide my fingers up and down the fretboard. String bending is, micro bends is just very nice on these polished frets. And I know that if I come back and play this guitar in 5 years' time, it'll feel pretty much as it does now. Whereas nickel frets just need a bit more maintenance. They tarnish, therefore need to be polished up from time to time. And over time they wear a bit more, and so you get this wear, particularly under the G and B string. And so the frets may well need a bit of a fret dressing to bring the crown back on and just polish up the frets and keep them in top playing condition. So there are some thoughts on stainless steel frets, and I hope you found that useful if you're thinking about installing stainless steel frets on your own guitar. I do have other videos I've made regarding general guitar repair, maintenance, as well as guitar building. And if you want to look at some of the guitars I've made myself, then please go to my website, flameguitars.co.uk, and you can see some of my work there. But thanks for watching this Flame Guitars video.